RFK has been one of the few appointments made during Trump's second term that hasn't been a complete disappointment. In part of his effort to make America healthy again, he's working with Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins to encourage state governments to apply for SNAP food choice waivers, giving states the abilities to restrict purchases of sugary beverages and highly processed foods using SNAP benefits. This has nothing to do with the work requirements or other changes to the SNAP programs. Health and Human Services Secretary Kennedy is quoted as saying, "We cannot continue a system that forces taxpayers to fund programs that make people sick and then pay a second time to treat the illnesses those very programs help create." So far, 18 states are taking advantage of this opportunity to restrict purchases of soft drinks, candy, and other highly processed foods. But most of the states have focused their restrictions on sugary beverages and energy drinks. This has got to be seen as a win, right? I mean, I don't think anyone should be banned or prevented from buying whatever kinds of food or beverages they want. But when taxpayers are subsidizing their grocery bill, I have no issue with restrictions being placed on their purchases. It's just like that line from Oliver Anthony's Rich Men North of Richmond, which is a great song. And if you've never heard it, you should check it out. It's incredibly powerful, and it's really kind of like a ballad for like the working class. But in it, Oliver Anthony's got this line. He says, "If you're 5'3" and you're 300 pounds, taxes ought not to pay for your bag of fudge rounds." And that's exactly right. This has got to be one of the only times in history that obesity is a problem for the poor people. You would think that anyone that actually cares about the well-being of the poor would think this is a good idea. But there's a concentrated effort by large lobbying groups to deter these health-based efforts, and it's not just liberal, quote-unquote, anti-poverty groups, but it's also large corporate lobbying groups like the American Beverage Association, the Food Marketing Institute, and the National Grocers Association that want to ensure their corporate interests can get their hands on those tax dollars. In this article from the Mises Institute written by Ryan McMakin, he identifies the Food Research Action Center, FRAC, which lobbies for SNAP spending as an anti-poverty interest group. But for over a decade, the group has received a large amount of funding from the beverage industry, including Coke, Pepsi, and the American Beverage Association. And sure enough, featured in this PBS article, presenting a negative view of the soda and candy bans, is Gina Platanino from the Food Research Action Center, claiming that by punishing SNAP recipients means that we all get to pay more at the grocery store. This simply is not true, as documented by this report from researchers at the World Bank that show general retail prices increase as a result of SNAP and welfare benefits. I mean, how could it not? SNAP is essentially an expansion of the money and credit supply in relation to groceries, creating more demand for those products. And really, for all products, because if SNAP benefits are subsidizing a customer's grocery expenses, they're able to use their remaining money to purchase other goods and drive up those prices. An example of this is that we're now seeing Pepsi reducing the prices of their products. Now, Pepsi's claiming that it's only due to falling consumer demand, but it just so happens that that falling consumer demand is lining up with these restrictions coming into effect. So it's not really a coincidence that Pepsi's cutting their prices at the same time. And Pepsi's even rolling out a new probiotic soda in an effort to have some type of beverage that will qualify to receive SNAP funding. And the other argument presented by the Food Research and Action Center in the interest of the beverage and retail industry is that it's too expensive and inconvenient for the retailers to distinguish the difference between the SNAP compliant and non-SNAP compliant products. But here's the catch. They already have to do this. I promise you, I'm all for removing unnecessary and burdensome regulations from all markets. But these are not mandatory regulations. They're only required if the retailers choose to participate in the SNAP program. And that's just it. The retailers are always going to choose to participate because they don't want to miss out on the SNAP money and the artificially inflated spending levels that come with the food stamp subsidy. So in spite of all the faux altruism, we know the real reason that groups like FRAC, the ABA, and the NGA continue to lobby for SNAP is to maximize the number of goods that are eligible for the subsidy in order to increase spending on the goods provided by the food producers and retailers. And we can see the increase in the lobbying efforts by the soda industry in this chart here from the Lobbying Disclosure Act filings that lobbying from groups like Coke, Pepsi and the American Beverage Association, they spent more in the first 2 quarters of 2025 than the entire year of 2024. And this lobbying effort is a big part of them trying to make sure that all of their products remain SNAP eligible. Our country is closing in on $39 trillion of debt, and the government can't stop spending. The corporate and social welfare has to end. I understand the welfare state is deeply entrenched into every part of our economy, and shutting it off cold turkey would be catastrophic. But we have to start cutting it back, and we have to start cutting it back now. Businesses and large corporations need to start making adjustments to be able to operate and survive in a real free market, and corporate subsidies need to be eliminated. Individuals and families need to also make adjustments and lifestyle changes to survive without government assistance. It's one thing to get temporary relief, but when it becomes a generational thing or simply accepted as a normal lifestyle to depend on government assistance, that it's just unacceptable. Benjamin Franklin had a quote regarding poverty, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but it's something along the lines of, people should be uncomfortable in their poverty because it's the discomfort that provides the incentive to do better. And that needs to be the attitude of Americans instead of wanting to be a socialist nanny state that takes care of people from the cradle to the grave. When my parents split up, my mom had to buy my dad out of the house, and she was working her day job as a secretary Monday through Friday, and then she was working nights and weekends at Target. And when she inquired about getting some type of assistance, she made like just a couple $1,000s above the threshold that made her eligible for government assistance. And the woman that she spoke to basically told her, like, hey, look, if you want to qualify, you just need to quit your second job at Target, and then that'll make you eligible to receive benefits. And my mom was like, well, that's ridiculous. Like, I'm not going to do that. You know, my mom's attitude was basically like, hey, I want a hand up, not a handout. And, you know, I respect that. And that's the way it should be. And when we do have programs that give assistance, that's the way they need to be framed. They need to help people that are helping themselves. And if you're not willing to do that, then you're not worth the investment. You know, middle class taxpayers are being crushed. They pay the taxes to provide subsidies to food producers. They pay the taxes to provide subsidies to the lower income consumers. And then they're also the ones paying higher prices at the grocery stores because the very assistance they're providing is bidding up the prices on those groceries. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment.